Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first Unit 42 Live Threats Unpacked session. I have two wonderful friends and colleagues with me today to share and discuss on some of the very topical threats which has been impacting the industries globally. And we will be discussing some of the key takeaways from those threats. I think, one of the key motive for this session is to really share this with the wider world, because a lot of times we have these internal discussions, and we thought, why not have a session together and discuss it in a public forum. So nothing best than on YouTube. So a bit of introduction about myself. My name is Vicky Ray. I cover the Asia Pacific region for Unit 42 Threat Intelligence, focusing on cybercrime and nation state cyber attacks. But also a large part of my work involves collaborating with external organizations, really building those relationships, because a lot of times the things we do, it's important to really kind of share that intel with the wider world or with our partners and even law enforcement agencies whom we work with. So collaboration is key there. So a bit of myself, and I'll let my colleagues introduce. Anna, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you, Vicky. Hi, everybody. I'm Anna Chong. I'm a principal researcher with Unit 42 as well. My specialty is deep and dark web and financial motivated cybercrime. And like Vicky, a big part of my job is to engage and exchange the threat intel and insights with organization, consumers, or the media. But the big difference is I am based in EMEA, so I'm here in the beautiful Amsterdam, and to help with this regional law enforcement, CERTs, and whoever research institutes, whoever is interested to know a little bit more about cyber threats. Pass to you, Kaoru.
Hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kaoru Hayashi. So I'm a field CSO in Japan. So actually, I am not a member of the Unit 42, but I used to be a researcher almost in 20 years. So I'm tracking the threats and then the risks, and then I'm now advisory. I'm like an advisor of the customers in Tokyo. So yeah, I'm happy to join the session. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Kaoru. I think I also wanted to mention that Kaoru is in a very senior level now. He's the CSO for our Japan region, but Kaoru actually also was within Unit 42. He worked with us. We had some really good fun working on threats together. So it's been a pleasure to have been working with you two. So of course, we have a bunch of topics to discuss today. The first one, which I wanted to discuss, of course, that has been really causing a lot of damage globally, is the growing attacks to industries from these ransomware gangs, right? And a lot of times when I'm kind of discussing with customers, a lot of people are sharing, like, why is this growing? Like in the past year, or actually 2 years, but in the last year, it has really, the volume has really grown significantly. So, of course, ransomware has been there for a long time. If we really go back in time, it actually started back in the late 1980s, and the ransom was asked over a physical medium once a system was infected. But of course, in the past 5 or 6 years, we have seen ransomware, various families targeting enterprises, and a lot of organizations, of course, having, we have always discussed, if you have the right process, tools in place, you are in a position to mitigate that risk. One of the major ones which we always emphasize on is backups. But here, in the past 2 years, while many organizations may have backups, they are still falling prey. So the difference now is these gangs have become very organized. And one of the main reasons for that increase is the rise in RAS campaigns, which is ransomware as a service, that has allowed other cyber criminals to actually buy services from the developers of these different ransomware gangs, right? So let's say if I was a criminal developing, I would provide my service to other criminals to now, so I don't have to manage all the targeting and hacking into other systems. So it has become more profitable to these bad guys, right? So because of that, these kind of services being quite easily available in the cybercrime underground, lots of people are jumping on it because it's become profitable. But at the same time, some of the techniques has changed. In the past 2 years, we have seen that not only are these gangs successfully compromising and encrypting victim networks, but they are also stealing the data first. So they have become a lot more sophisticated, because once they hack in, it's not that they're just randomly encrypting systems or devices, or that is not happening. They're really understanding the networks. They're understanding where the backups are, what are the crown jewels within a network, and which are these subnets. So they are well coordinated, planned, and then once they get access to this critical information, now they can monetize. Now they then hold ransom against that encrypted data. And now even if a victim has backup, while business continuity can go on, the risk of data being leaked is substantial, because what these guys are also doing is they are managing leak sites in the dark web, right? So every double extortion ransomware, it's also called, the RAS model is also called the double extortion ransomware, because they are eventually threatening the victims with that data being freely leaked in the dark web, or probably even sold, right? So we have seen that happen almost by most of the double extortion ransomware gangs. So the impact to business is substantial. There are various other things, like, for example, even performing DDoS attacks. So they want to cripple the victim environment and really kind of force the victims to pay up. So it's become really tough for a lot of organizations to handle these. Of course, there are lots of things to consider. But I just wanted to start this conversation and let my colleagues also comment. Anna, if you have something to add on there.
Yeah, I think it's really important you brought up the ransomware as a service trends and underground forums. So there's several major components and roles in this whole process. If you think about it, like first what Vicky mentions, there's developer who create this ransomware portal that would allow less tech-savvy attackers to kind of rent this portal and customize the malware they're going to deploy later to for the ransom extortions. And there's like several pricing model. There's like one-off buying, there's monthly renting, and the third one is the affiliate programs, like Vicky said. And it brings us to the second roles in this whole process, which is the affiliates. There are the people who actually operate, get into the access, and then maybe do lateral movement, privilege escalations, and then kind of understand how much value this target can afford, or how much ransom they can afford to pay, and then deploy the ransoms, or either encrypt the data or steal the data away from the victims. And they are usually the one who get most pay. I think averagely speaking, those affiliates are the one who get paid 70 to 80% of the total ransom, versus the developer maybe have 20, 30%. And one thing it's important to highlight is a lot of this affiliates, they don't really infiltrate a system by themselves. Sometimes they have options to buy those initial access to the compromised machine from what we call initial access broker. They can have a list of offering and then see, oh, this organization, where do they base? Are they US, European country, Asia Pacific, or how much revenue they have? Sometimes the initial access offering also lists out those informations to attract ransomware campaigns to buy those access from them. And what we see in 2020, it's such a big, really good year for initial access broker because it allows them to like sell those. First of all, the demand increased because of the ransomware. So they sell a lot of those initial access and get a cut from the ransomware campaign without being actual part of the extortion, right? And the second really good reason for them that 2020 was a good year was the work from home. Like we're all working from home this year, and there's some really unprotected VPN credential were leaked. So in the initial access brokers websites, we see they start offering a lot of credentials, means your email, username, and passwords allow them to have a foothold into enterprise or corporate or small business, whoever can later be abused by the ransomware campaign. Kaoru, did you see anything similar to that in Japan?
Yeah, so we are seeing not so many, but some companies were the victims of the ransomware. But we are seeing the numbers of the victim listed by the country in the report. So we are seeing the high numbers in the United States. So more than 100 or 150 victims in the United States. But compared to the number, so the number of the victims in Japan is very small. So I don't know why it's such a huge numbers of the companies in US were victims of the ransomwares.
Right. I think, Kaoru, are you referring to the ransomware report which we published?
Yes.
And right. Some of the stats, right? So I'll try to shed some light on that. So one of those, what we also did as part of that investigation or that as part of the research was to look at all these leak sites, right? In the past year, how many victim organizations or how many victim organization data has been leaked in these dark web websites or the leak sites. Then what we did was we segregated those organizations based on regions. And as you rightly pointed out, Americas was like 60+ of the percentage of victims was in the Americas region, followed by EMEA, I believe it was 20+, and then JPEG almost 10%, right? So one of the key reasons which I feel is, of course, the economy in America is much higher, as compared to, or in the Americas region, US particularly, is the economy is much higher with organizational revenues for each organizations going very high compared to other regions. However, one critical thing to note here is a lot of organizations in the US have been buying cyber insurance. So what is happening is, let's say if an organization has cyber insurance and they fall victim to a ransomware attack, they evidently are in a better position from a threat, from the bad guy perspective to pay up, right? Because they have, these cyber criminal gangs have realized that whoever has cyber insurance, pay up much faster. So because as a victim organization, you would want to really get back to your business as fast as possible. And if you have insurance, let the insurance company take the damage and take those losses. But as compared to that, the numbers are quite low because while cyber insurance is picking up in the Asia Pacific, it's still in its infancy. Yes, there are some organizations who are now looking at it, but compared to the US, it's much higher in the US, so to say, right? So one other point I wanted to make was we are aware of certain interviews given by these affiliates. Anna was mentioning about the affiliates, and they have actually given certain interviews, which actually mentions that they would prioritize organizations who have cyber insurance. So they know that they have a better chance to get the payment. And just going back to some of the things which Anna mentioned, like some key roles, like of course the developers, the people who are selling these. The second is the affiliate, as Anna mentioned, who are buying these services. And the third, which is very key, is the initial access brokers, which Anna said, and there are also some people term them as ransomware consultants or service providers, because these guys, actually, when we look at it, these affiliates, while they are good in the technical side of things, they lack in making the victim pay up, right? So a lot of things, what they, I'm just going to repeat some of the things which Anna mentioned, is about they may provide the hacking services, provide access to networks. But what they also do is they really profile the organization. Like, for example, who are the senior management? What is their revenue? How much can this organization pay up? Do they have a capability, or they already have a relationship with the cybersecurity vendor? So these guys are really doing a lot of homework in the background. So sometimes the same gang may be asking for ransom, which may go into 10 million maybe, or sometimes their initial ask may start from just 2 or 4 million. It's not that they just come to a random number, but they have done their homework. These consultants, these ransomware consultants, they actually come up with a number based on all that homework they did. And what they also do is they help the affiliates do the negotiations. So we have seen some snippets of negotiation. In fact, our Unit 42 consulting team has been also engaged in some of those negotiations. And these guys are so professional. They really, the way they discuss is not like a thug, kind of threatening somebody. The words, the way they portray themselves like pure, businessmen. So they have the skills to ensure that they can negotiate and get those profits. So this whole ecosystem is built to support each other, and it is thriving. Sometimes they may have differences and there are fallouts, but at the end of the day, there are several key actors collaborating and making millions of dollars. So unfortunately, if organizations don't look at it in every angle, if they don't build their defensive posture, understanding how these gangs operate, there are chances that one may fall victim to these cyber criminals. So this is one of the reasons I think it's important that we discuss this and share. And one other thing, which I'm not sure, I think it is important for us to discuss is on attribution. Like one of the reports which I had, come across a couple of weeks back was a popular news cyber security news provider, where they attributed a certain ransomware incident to a certain group, and then they mentioned it with a typical cybercrime gang name. I think it was Fin11, but eventually, that attribution was incorrect. And it's important for us to really understand how these things work. Anna and we discussed about affiliate programs. So there are so many people behind it who are actually going and buying these services. So now how can you really cluster these campaigns that, okay, this is this so-and-so gang? It is not that straightforward, like, how we attribute attacks with a certain malware family to a nation state, or maybe very unique to a cyber criminal gang. So attribution is something which cannot be done directly to a certain gang, a known gang, because there are multiple affiliates involved. So it's an important thing to take note of. So yeah, that's what I had to add. I'm sure that in case, do you guys want to add something to that?
I would say, I think psychology and the psychological manipulation specifically is skills that the cyber criminals are really good at when it comes to, the double extortions, and then pretend to show like compassion to the victims, right? Like they're so good. Like I've seen so many like conversation they had, and they first, they always request a really large amount of ransom, and then they give you big discounts so that it makes the victim feel like, oh, I got a discount. I have to pay for this. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. A second is we've came across cases, the double extortions came in several ways. Like leak site, like Vicky said, was one of the most commonly seen way, like the public shaming the victims till they pay. The second is, I think, DDoS is the second one, to take down their business operations. The third one is directly calling the CEO or the senior leadership of the victim companies to kind of demonstrate how much control they gain, and then just putting that psychological pressure on the victim further and furthermore. And also, if you look at the negotiation process as well, sometimes they give each other like compliments, like, oh, you're such a professional negotiator. I always enjoy working with professional negotiator. So I think from the victims, hopefully nobody will ever, be put in that positions. But if unfortunately that happened to an organization, it's important to engage a professional third party, because you would not be in the right place to continue that negotiation. So report to the police, or talk to a higher incident responder team would really help you control that damage and have a better visibility where you are and navigate to your next step. Hayashi-san, you have something? Sorry, I interrupted you earlier.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, so it's very interesting. So so everyone recognize the ransomware can get huge money, so the millions and millions of money. So I'm afraid of the more criminals will participate in the cyber attacks, especially the ransomware attacks. So probably we will see more and more incidents regarding incidents of the ransomware this year and then next year. So yeah, we should prepare for the attacks.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to make, Hayashi-san, that given what has been ongoing and the amount of money which these guys are making, I'm sure that this is going to continue absolutely. This year, and it may trickle down to next year as well. And given how profitable it is, unless there are certain deterrents, these guys will continue. Of course, with a recent case on dark side, I think they targeted a U.S. organization, an oil and gas organization, almost. We can call that almost a national infrastructure, right? Which was impacted. And while it was known that ransom was paid in millions, like almost $4.5 million, I think there was a certain, US authorities really took action against these actors. They took down the infrastructure, and also there were some other things like, I think the actors even lost access to that ransom which was paid. But I think these are some of these exceptions, because a national infrastructure was targeted. So legally, there are certain probable pathways for certain, government agencies to take action. But I'm not sure if that is that can be a possibility in all the other cases, because when we look at the other industries being targeted, like manufacturing, high tech,
Healthcare,
professional and legal, healthcare, yeah.
especially
So these are, yes, and especially with what's going on now, it's very it's really sad. And like when we look at now, like the challenges, right? When we look at how the payments are being made, and Anna mentioned about these cuts, right? Once the payment, let's say $1 million is paid, a majority chunk of that gets paid to the affiliate. Secondly comes these service providers or these ransomware consultants who do a lot of those negotiations, providing access and so on and so forth. And the smaller chunk goes to the developers or the admins. But these developers are actually making a lot of money because they have so many affiliates. At the end of the day, they are just sitting and just collecting the money just by providing that, right? So, but again, how much can an organization take and rely on paying up? That is a business decision. But we, of course, our advice to organizations are always never to pay. But unfortunately, there are situations where organizations end up paying.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, I think another reason not to pay is we have heard of cases from several victims claiming the key they received can only decrypt part of the data, restore part of the data. And even like in the underground forums, we see cyber criminals are actively buying the list of victims who previously paid. So they think this victim has a higher chance to pay again or have the data leak somewhere else. So again, like I think not paying would, like, even if you pay, there's no guarantee you could get your data back. But yeah, so I think ransomware is, as we kind of lightly touch on it, like the whole working from home, the pandemic has also increased a lot of opportunity for the ransomware campaign, especially the initial access broker. I was wondering, now since we are 1 year, slightly more than 1 year in the pandemic, how is the lifestyle or the digital usage look like in each region, in your places, and like how does the pandemic change everybody's day-to-day life?
Well, maybe I'll go first. Of course, I mean, I'm based out of Singapore. I guess I didn't mention it when I introduced myself. So in Singapore, most of the people are advised to work from home now. We are getting into the second wave. The number of cases have grown. But yeah, I mean, the government has taken, has done a great job in containing the cases. And since the pandemic started, we, as people have to ensure that when we are getting into a mall or a store or any places externally, we have to check in using a QR code. So QR codes have really become a norm now. Like, we need to scan and ensure that that is tracked. Like, okay, so and so individual was in this location. That has happened. Of course, with the movement to work from home, majority of the people are working from home. So I'm so thankful that technology is here and technology has really survived or made people survive the pandemic. There has been so many other pandemics ages ago, and I can't imagine how, of course, things are really bad now, but without technology, things. So I'm very thankful for what we have.
What about you, Hayashi-san?
Yeah, same as well. So, we are seeing the lots of the online shoppings, and then also the adoption of the remote work is very low in Japan, unfortunately, probably 30% or 20%, like that. And but the contactless payment is, I think, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the contactless payment is getting popular here too. So using the QR code or the contactless card or something like that. So I'm a big fan of the Apple Pay by using the Apple Watch. So it's very handy, and then it's safe because don't need to touch or
yeah,
I
agree.
So
QR codes. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just saying QR codes also became very popular in our day-to-day basis here in the Netherlands. Previously, like, you probably came across it in some kind of marketing campaign somewhere, but these days, as the restaurant and business reopens, you are asked to go to restaurants to scan the QR code to request the menu, place your order, and also make the payment through QR codes. And I know in many different places, such as—
It's happening here as well. Yep.
Yeah, or if you go to the gym, each restaurant or shop you enter, some of the places require you to scan QR codes to kind of register or leave your contact information. So it allows the government or health authority to do a bit of contact tracing. I think in Taiwan, in Germany, they're all using similar methods. That's kind of one way to look at it. And also, like, people just feel like when a QR code pump notification, they feel the need to do something, but not knowing that it could lead them to phishing websites, download malicious app to their mobile devices when they don't intend it to, or sometimes even trigger unintended payment as well. So I think it's maybe one things we're going to see more and more in this post-pandemic world. And I was wondering, did you guys came across any similar concern, complaint, or have any good suggestions for people?
Yeah, I think awareness is so important. Like, I think, there has been already a lot of the awareness being spread by law enforcement. Even here, there has been, in the past, I mean, QR codes have been used for certain fraudulent activities. So I think people need to, the more we are using things like QR code, people have to really be very careful what they are scanning. I mean, where they are doing it from. A lot of times, even websites would allow you to scan QR code on your mobile, and because if there are cyber criminals putting in malicious QR codes and deploying exploits on the landing page, which impacts an Android phone, it's an easy way to compromise victim organizations. So awareness is so critical. And talking about COVID and the pandemic, I think I also wanted to take this opportunity to mention that we have done within Unit 42, we have been spending a lot of time looking at malicious campaigns tied to the pandemic. A lot, like, we have published several blogs since the start of the pandemic on how criminals have kind of capitalized on this. A lot of NRDs, newly registered domains, are being created for phishing, of course, but lots of things, fraud, selling fake stuff. So lots of malicious activities are happening, and it is unfortunate to see that the pandemic has given some leverage to these criminals, a lot of leverage actually. And in light to that, I think our machine learning team, kudos to them. They've done some awesome job where not trying to sell, but I'm so happy with what they came up with, is that they our malicious detection system can highlight malicious websites as and when it is registered. So of course, the logic, there are several things which is checked, and the algorithm decides that this has a higher chance of it being maliciousness. So I'm super excited, because now it is not just going to rely on specific some malicious activity to happen. So it's just going to block or detect it right at the initial stages. So excited there, and kudos really to the machine learning team developing the DNS within the DNS security guys. So awesome stuff happening from the detection wise, and really sharing that from a COVID perspective. But we have also seen, I think, I wanted to also quickly jump to, I think we have limited time now. So some other topics which we had in mind was the importance of how these especially we called a campaign Solar Storm last year, and basically organizations are compromised, and they become a supply chain, right? So supply chain threats we have seen being utilized a lot. Yeah, I think last year in one of the discussions where I had mentioned that supply chain is something very critical. I mean, this hadn't even happened, but I was talking about more on the IoT perspective, because there are a lot of open source code available, people are developing. So my references or the context was from an IoT perspective, because there is so much of products going into the market on open source code. It can very quickly be capitalized, or malicious code can be embedded on that. But now we are seeing supply chains and big enterprises compromised, and they are becoming the supply chain vector. I just wanted to get your thoughts. I mean, maybe I'll go ahead with Kauru. Maybe if you can share some of your thoughts on this topic.
Yeah. The solar storm cases, I think there are two reasons for this successful attacks. And then the first one is that the target software is trusted by users because it's for the critical mission, and then the software has a higher privilege. So it means the software can do that, can do anything, access directly to the internet or write the file on a computer. So it's trusted because of the missions. And another reason is that updating software. So updating software is one of the basic security best practice. Therefore, the update channel is usually trusted, or maybe it's a blind spot from blind spot for the security team. So the problem is we are running many programs on the computer these days. So from your perspective, how can we mitigate software supply chain risks or attacks?
Yeah, that's a very, very important point. I mean, if one is trusted, we run things from trusted sources. I mean, in this case, the code, the application was trusted, and a very important discussions when we talk about these supply chains is every organization, in my opinion, who are developing tools, they they need to be aware of these kind of attacks. And if we see large organizations, the victim, in this case, in the solar storm campaign, they had a global reach. Their products had privileged access. So it was all, the right thing for the attacker if they have access to that. So it's so important. Like when, since last year we have been talking with our cloud security experts, and when we are talking about cloud, right? So maybe we can discuss a bit of cloud stuff now, but the one of the key things to note is how do we ensure that security or best practices, or how shall I say it, the sec in DevSecOps, right? So to ensure security is imperative and prioritized in all organizations in the development phase. So the term used as shift left. How can we really ensure security is prioritized right at the initial stages of the development lifecycle, right? So, like for example, the CI/CD pipeline when we are talking about DevSecOps, how can we really automate it? Because okay, again, going back to the context of COVID, we have, since last year, everyone has gone remote, and many organizations have gone to the cloud as fast as possible, right? And in that urgency, a lot of people are deploying their environments in the cloud very fast. But how can we really ensure that it is deployed in a secure manner? Manually, it is not feasible, absolutely not feasible. So there has to be some automation in place. Organizations really need to rely on solutions which provide security automatically, right? So I think one of the key priorities is like CNSP, Cloud Native Security Platform. It is hugely important to have something, a solution which provides visibility and automation at the same time. So yeah, I think, I gave a long version, but I think there are so many aspects to look at it to ensure that supply chain attacks are mitigated or the risk is reduced as much as possible. But again, we know that we are up against very motivated adversaries, but this should be a motivation for defenders to ensure that we have to prioritize security at every stage, and also automation.
I agree, and I think there's like two major elements here. First is the detection parts. For the SolarWinds specific case, I don't think any traditional signature-based detection system will be able to block it. And the reason why we did it is because we use also behavior-based detection systems. So when we detect abnormal behavior in a very specific environment, does not match the historical activity and the user's previous behavior, we could immediately do analysis and stop it. And the second element, I think, is detections. What Vicky kind of mentioned, the underlying there is time, right? Like, so the reason why we want to use automation is because we want to quickly respond. Like, one of the stress to being a defendant side is we always want to kind of outsmart attackers just a little bit, and then buying time for all the potential victims, or help them quickly respond to the known threats. So when we learn about a threat, we want to help everybody immediately understand it's a threat. Previously, it's probably unknown. We didn't know it's bad, but now we know, like, you should also block it. And what is the most effective way to detect that and then share that information with everyone? I think the automation and also machine learning, again, what Vicky just said, because we have that baselines to come back and compare to, so we know what's the benchmark, what are the things we should list it as suspicious and keep monitoring, what are things that we should consider it's bad, and what are things we can kind of let it go for now. So I think these are two really major components to mitigate the software supply chain attack.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
yeah, very important point, that behavior and analytics, that was huge. I think we even published a blog on how we were able to kind of, it was a short one. Of course, we don't want the bad guys to know how we do it. But yeah, I'm super glad that that we were able to prevent that attempt. So really cool there.
So maybe
Very
before
quickly,
we wrap up
Go
the
ahead.
conversation, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Anna.
I was thinking we definitely cannot walk away from this presentation without giving people some good suggestion and hope, right? Like, because we talk about a bunch of really scary stuff happened just in 2021. And the whole purpose, the reason why I like our job is because we can use our insight and knowledge to help people manage that anxiety, that really stressful situation. So we should totally leave leave the presentation with some really constructive, useful, practical tips for everyone. Does Hayashi-san, would you like to start?
Oh, me? Okay.
Okay, you should be one couple.
Okay. Yeah, so you mean a wrap?
Yeah, like, or any suggestions or looking forward next year, what do you think would happen and what are things we can all do better?
Yeah, as I told you, so I'm afraid of the continuing the ransomware attacks next year as well. So, but yeah, so your suggestion is really good because the machine learning is good, or behavior detection is good for the ransomware as well. So yeah, people can have time to prepare for the next attacks. And then, so we, or the security industries, provides many solutions with the new technologies. So yeah, so don't be victims, and then and then prepare for the attacks, because they are the organized crime. Cyber criminals are now organized crime. So yeah, we should prepare for that.
Yeah, I think having the right processes and technologies in place and how these are interconnected is so important, right? So to kind of defend against these attacks. I mean, of course, detection is important. We have to understand what is known, but also what is, if something is unknown, how can we prevent it, rather than it being just a detect and respond effort, right? So that is hugely important. But from a ransomware perspective, it is very important from end users, as organizations and defenders, to really learn from these TTPs of organizations. What these cybersecurity organizations like us and many others are publishing every single day, and learn from it and apply that in the playbooks, right? Because the more we understand of these attacks from a ransomware perspective, I'm talking about, is that they are employing several techniques. There is privilege escalation and lateral movement. What kind of tools is being used? Are we in a position to really have that visibility? Does your solution provide that visibility if you're a defender? Or do you have a good understanding of their modus operandi, right? So the more we understand these, the MO and the TTPs, the better we are, the better we can prepare ourselves. Of course, I think we had discussed about these guys, while we can't trust them, but they have built this, how shall I say, that credibility that they may provide decryption keys if people pay up. So again, because that's how they grow their business. Because if they don't pay, if they don't provide the decryption key, then their goodwill goes down. People don't trust them and don't pay up. But now, since people know that if you pay up, they're going to give that key. But it is hugely important that while people or organizations think or consider certain negotiations, law enforcement engagement is hugely important. So I request everyone, if anyone is a victim, report it to the law enforcement, report it to your local authorities, and let them have that visibility and see how that can be leveraged while you conduct your own internal processes and take actions as per your policies. But I think please engage your authorities and report it. That is from the ransomware side. So I'll leave it to you guys to add on to it. But of course, when we talk about backups, that is still important. Yeah, and we are publishing a lot of threat assessments almost in a very regular manner, a few in a month, specific to each ransomware family. So if you want to read those threat assessments, it's already publicly available. Go to unit42.paloaltonetworks.com. Look for those threat assessments. If you just include /ransomware after the URI, you will get all those threat assessments on your page. But again, if let's say if you're a Palo Alto Networks customers, we also provide courses of action, like how per product, how we are looking at defending against these threats per product. So again, it's not only just useful for our customers, but even people in general. You can take a lot of things from those reports and our publications to defend against them. So
yeah, I agree. And then also when I have conversation with people, like maybe not customer, but like family, friends, people from the community, I realize people don't really understand ransomware started with maybe someone click on a link they shouldn't click, click on attachment they shouldn't click. So I think the day-to-day cyber hygiene is really important.
Hugely important.
Here, yeah, like so people, like usually the reason why they come into your system and put the ransomware. Imagine if your system is a building, it's because you accidentally open a door to someone who shouldn't be allowed in your property at first place. And it's the same in the digital world. So be very cautious about what you click into. The same with the QR code security suggestions I would give to everyone. First of all, if you scan a QR code, make sure you disable your browsers to automatically open that the QR code you scanned. It always should show you the URL, but you're about to redirect it to. This is a really good opportunity for you to take a pause and think if this is the website you plan to visit. Is there any reason you are being redirected to this URL link? And second is, you can download like safe QR code readers app on your phone. Last but not the least, also really favorite technique used by the attackers, lure the victim to download things from website they shouldn't download to their mobile devices, to their PC, to their Mac. So it's important to only download applications from trusted sources, such as Apple Store, the Google Play stores. Don't just open door for potential suspicious software applications to any of your device.
Yeah, cool. Yes, that is so important. Thanks, Anna. And one other thing, just before we wrap up, is that we actually released from a cloud, defending against cloud threats. I think we covered a couple of ways already. CNSPs, infrastructure as code. How can we automate those scanning? Which can be done by CNSP. But we also published the cloud threat report just a couple of weeks back. So please ensure that you go through the report. There's a ton of stuff where we are talking about how organizations can prevent and deal with these threats. And as like the ransomware, we are publishing a lot of stuff in the same space, unit42.paloaltonetworks.com. So go there, and there's a lot of things being published every week. So yeah, I think we are almost time, and I think it was a pleasure to share the screen space with you, both of you. I had a great time, and looking forward to do this again. Thanks, guys.